I introduced some of you into the lovely world of megachurch pastors this past week. It's an industry ripe with charlatans who care most about making money and flying private jets by selling snake oil to the congregation. This industry is like whack-a-mole, as another megachurch pastor has been found guilty of selling a fraud scheme to the church members and other investors. You knock a few out one week and a few more pop up the next. A Texas megachurch pastor and former spiritual advisor to 2 U.S. presidents has been sentenced to 6 years in prison for bilking investors out of millions of dollars. Kirbyjon H. Caldwell, 67, was sentenced Wednesday in Shreveport, Louisiana, where he and his co-defendant Gregory A. Smith were indicted in 2018. If you were to think of the best business model in the world, they would have these characteristics. Can't be taxed, 70% of Americans believe in your message or product, the parents who believe in your product force their kids to believe in your product, there's no way of proving the product doesn't work, and you can make millions of dollars selling your product. Everyone would agree this sounds too good to be true. It isn't, and that's why people like Kirbyjon Caldwell and all the other charlatan megachurch pastors get into this business. Excuse me, it's not a business. The IRS might be watching. It's an entity that collects money providing a service, earns a profit, owns property within the entity, pays salaries, but isn't a business. Kirbyjon has written a book titled The Gospel of Good Success, a roadmap to spiritual, emotional, and financial wholeness. In the Amazon description, it says Caldwell was a fast-track bond broker with an MBA from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, but he turned away from a 6-figure income to answer the call of his divine purpose. I love how the snake oil sales book department is running out of titles. Caldwell's next book should be titled The Gospel of Bad Success, Why Making Money Committing Fraud Leads You to Prison. And he turned away a 6-figure income because running a megachurch is millions a year in earnings as opposed to some lower class $100K a year income. Let's not act like these guys turn into preachers because some voice guided them to it. Caldwell teamed up with a financial advisor, Gregory A. Smith, in 2013 to create a scheme to make some money. Maybe the donations from the church and the book sales from his eloquently titled books weren't enough. They watched some fake guru ads on YouTube and devised a perfect plan to swindle millions. Because you aren't going to believe what I'm going to say next, we have to review Article 1, Section C of the indictment. Historical Chinese bonds, the bonds, were bonds issued by the former Republic of China prior to losing power to the communist government in 1949. The bonds are not recognized by China's current government, the People's Republic of China, and accordingly are considered memorabilia with no investment value. So get this, Smith and Caldwell were selling historical Chinese bonds that were issued before 1949. There's no value in these bonds other than as memorabilia. And even worse, they were promising massive returns by investing in these bonds. Gullible investors were buying crap and expecting to become millionaires in 2 months. Smith, the financial advisor, approached this investor in 2014 to invest in the bonds. Smith promised the investor a return on investment of an amount representing 15 times his original investment within 30 to 60 days. 15 times your original investment within 30 to 60 days. This is a fake guru ad on YouTube on steroids. The sad reality is that fake gurus on social media are a small piece of the worldwide fraud industry. This financial advisor takes the cake for most outrageous claims, though. Smith approached this investor in 2014 to invest in the bonds. The investor was informed that Caldwell, a prominent Texas pastor and businessman, was putting together a deal with the bonds. Smith promised the investor that if he invested $500,000, he would receive $3 million. As hopefully all of you know by now, when someone is making claims that they can guarantee returns, be very careful. And if the returns are anything like these clowns promise, run. Outside of some very super rare lucky gambles like timing Bitcoin and Tesla swings, you can't make multiples on your money that quickly. You just can't. The investor had just wired over $500,000. After wiring the funds, the investor attempted to get a refund of his investment. This is the best part. In doing so, the investor spoke with Caldwell, who then offered to increase the investor's return to $4.5 million if he did not seek a refund. I had to read this sentence twice. Caldwell said, "Hold on, buddy. I'm going to incentivize you to keep your money with me and be a little more patient for your return, okay? I'll give you more of a payout from the scheme for your patience. You're no longer going to receive $3 million, you'll receive $4.5 million. A couple years later, the investor again attempted to get a refund and had a telephone call with Caldwell and Smith. Caldwell informed him that he did not have the money to return. This other investor was promised a return of $3 million for a simple investment of $50,000. Of course the investor wanted in, because where else can you receive a 60x return? This same investor was then offered another opportunity to invest $51,500 to return $3.15 million within 2 weeks. We all enjoy watching the fake guru ads and the insane claims they make, but they're reasonable compared to the charlatans of the megachurches. At least the preachers in my other video make it clear that they wanted donations for private jets, and the only return is that God will provide a prosperous lifestyle to them. Where did the money go? I bet you didn't guess that these two fraudsters spent it on personal consumption. After receiving investor funds, Smith and Caldwell misappropriated those funds to pay personal loans and credit cards, purchase vehicles, pay mortgages, and for other personal expenses. Oh, what a surprise. This scheme didn't lead to some magical Chinese bonds purchase. It was all so they could spend the money on themselves. Thankfully for Kirbyjon, he has written a book titled Praying to Change Your Life, A Guide to Productive Prayer, so he'll be able to pray his way to a different life. Because these self-help books are so helpful and practical, I'm sure he'll be able to pray his way out of prison.
Reverend Caldwell has been a spiritual force in this city, in this state, in this country for 30 years. He has been spiritual advisor to not only President George W. Bush, but to President Obama.
What makes spotting fraudsters so difficult is that most fraudsters aren't bad every moment of the day. Some can be really solid people for their entire careers, and then for whatever reason they get really greedy and create a scheme to take millions from investors.
He has his family, his faith, and his God to rely upon.
If you ever wonder religion's impact on society, analyze this quote. There's a weird fallacy that exists in the United States, I'll label it the fallacy of faith, where someone is seen as inherently good if they say they have faith in the Lord.
These charges are false.
You notice how the lawyer positions Caldwell as innocent because he has faith in God to rely upon. I don't even know what that means. When you're guilty of a crime, you're guilty regardless of what you believe in.
At no time did he conspire to commit a crime with anyone. At no time did he make a false statement or knowingly made a false statement. At no time did he try to cheat anyone.
At no time did this lawyer say anything truthful. This Pastor Caldwell was really intelligent, graduated from Wharton School of Business, served on the board of directors of Continental Airlines, a multiple billion-dollar company, and is old enough to know better that you can't accept money and promise a huge return. He knowingly took money and spent it on personal consumption instead of investing it.
Every single person that has asked for their money back has gotten it back.
You can't take money from people, spend it on credit cards, mortgages, and personal expenses, and then claim that everyone got their money back. Fraudulent schemes work because you pay back the initial investors with new investors' money. When you stop taking new money, when the feds come knocking at your door, you can't pay back the most recent investors. Someone is left with a loss.
These bonds are legitimate. The process is legitimate. I fully maintain that the accusation is baseless, and I hold evidence in my hand to the authenticity and the legitimacy of the bonds.
Maybe Caldwell is the smartest idiot ever. Maybe he actually believed that some Chinese bonds that aren't worth anything would magically return 60x their investment within 2 weeks. Maybe we just have too high of expectations for Caldwell. Maybe God told him that he'd be rich if he sold these Chinese bonds.
No, it was because the contract, if the investors were dissatisfied, they had the right to request their money back.
And why were they dissatisfied?
Because it was taking longer than they wanted, I suppose. But the point is, if they requested their money back, the money was returned.
People get sucked into fraudulent schemes because of the sales pitch and claims made. The reason investors were asking for their money back was their expectations were a huge return in a short amount of time. When Caldwell and Smith still had their money months later, of course they're going to get a little worried. When you analyze these schemes as much as I do, you'll start noticing trends. This case is very similar to the Clayton Morris case in Indianapolis. Clayton and Kirbyjon both had clean records, were old enough to know better, and claimed their victims to a business partner who had mischievous intentions, but they both got too greedy and were blind to reality. If Kirbyjon really thinks that these bonds are still going to pay off like he claims later in this video, then maybe he needs some more education.
He still believes that the bonds will pay off. Absolutely does. And again, he invested more of his money than anybody else did.
But he got greedy and pitched an investment scheme that is right in line with a get-rich-quick scheme. One of my intentions with this channel and the videos I make is to help show people that there's no way to get rich quick or invest in some scheme that will make you wealthy in a couple months. I know it's easy to feel severe FOMO sitting on social media and seeing people get wealthy overnight, but those people either put in years of work that you didn't see, or they're scammers. Stay away from anyone promising huge returns in investment schemes. What's most important is that you self-educate, maybe for years, so you can understand specific industries. And when opportunities arise in those industries, then you can take advantage. I hate when there are victims in schemes like this, but they should have done a lot more due diligence where they would have seen that they're investing in a Chinese bond scam. Just asking a few questions about what they'll be investing in should have set off major red flags. We're all vulnerable. That's what is difficult about these kinds of stories. Caldwell had a great reputation in the community, has years of experience on a board of directors, and yet still came up with a fraudulent scheme. Greed is good, says Gordon Gekko, but greed is why these schemes exist. Stay safe from schemes, my friends. Thanks for watching.